and doing what I can to understand, yeah, if my primary concern is mitigating suffering, right? And that is, I saw we're recording now. Like if that's the
If
the
you know, hey
governing,
man,
yeah, that's the if we take that
Allow
to
me to record.
be, right, a priori the governing ethos, yeah, then at the time at which we do that, we realize every time there is self and other, there is suffering. There is no self without suffering. The teacher Matthew Brensilver, Buddhist teacher that I love dearly, that I've sat retreat with and that I consider to be a friend, and for whom I'm going to go ahead as we're recording and make the pledge. I am going to take those sketches and I'm going to complete that piece for Matthew, because that matters to my heart more than whatever other piece, whatever chopsy video I might feel the pull to create, because I'm coming into it and people, I need, this, I need a career, blah, blah, blah. I need to get social media. I need to get, yeah,
all these factors to line up.
All these, and I was saying to Peter before, I wanted to make sure that one thing that I invited us to consider, right? And I want to pose this like a koan, and then I'm gonna yield. Yeah, is what is okay? So I'll ask you. So Peter, Dana, and Lucas, what do you guys think is our most basic currency as beings incarnated on this plane? Yeah, I was pretty careful with that. What's our most basic currency?
Is or should be our basic.
What is it? No, is our most basic currency. This is not a point of debate.
Okay, gotcha. To me, awareness, but I don't know.
Good answer.
Crushed it. Okay, all right. Hang on. Right? So, but okay, great, beautiful, awesome. I didn't think we were going to get there that fast, but I'm not surprised.
You know who you're talking to.
I don't actually, dude. Dana and I.
Dana.
Yo, Dana, and no, but here's the thing. So Lucas, I don't know if we've met or not. You look familiar. I don't know how, when, whatever. But Dana and I, we have met and we have performed together.
Yeah, you gotta refresh my foggy memory, man.
Let me see. What could be the best way to do that? Maybe by doing doing. It doesn't matter what bow I've got, If that doesn't do it, I can't help you, bro.
That's badass shit.
Bam! He's like, boom.
I don't remember the gig either, but I remember you're playing. I totally let that hang up there, didn't I?
What is it we were saying about performers?
I remember your spirit like as clear as day, and I remember us conversing, but I just don't. Man, it's been like.
How great is that? That's the greatest fucking shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You just made me think of the teaching about the man in the boat. We'll get there.
But it's definitely been more than a decade as far as it has to have been.
I just said a decade because whatever. But anyway, time was a lie, as we all know. Anyway.
Well, precisely. It's no illusion. It happened now. Actually, is when we actually met.
Right. And now.
What?
No, wait. What about now? Wait a minute. But we've never been here now before. What about now? We've never been here now before. How's that? That's great. I got that from Pascal Auclair, who talked about making the ordinary. What is mindfulness? It's when the ordinary becomes extraordinary.
There's a lot of pointers to that one. To that one, I'll just end it there. It's beautiful. So should we do introductions, or we're already recording pretty much? But for those of us that those out there who don't know who we are, I'm Dana Stevens from Patterson, New Jersey. And moving on.
Peter Stoltzman, living in Denver, Colorado.
Lukash Vesely here in California. Super psyched to be here.
Yeah, epic. Alan Grubner out here in Heartland, Vermont, newly transplanted outside of the concrete jungle, aka Brooklyn. Yeah, super. There are no words to express.
So, Alan, you you were kind of connected / reconnected to me through our mutual buddy Rich Stein.
Yeah, Rich,
godfather of my children and one of my best friends on the planet, and
yeah, soul brother, man.
And we immediately talked for like an hour and a half, and have been texting, and we just talked for 55 minutes before this too.
And didn't it just? And haven't we always been?
So let's see. I think to give us a little bit of an agenda, I think it'd be nice for you to just give a personal introduction. One of the things that you talked to me about is the personal transformations that you've been going through, and a big part of that has been embracing Buddhism, and I think I'd love to hear some about that, just to set the stage a little bit, and for our kind of a general topic here of personal transformation. And
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and kind of trying to find sanity in what often feels like a kind of an insane world.
Feels like. You know, Krishnamurti said, just real quick, Krishnamurti said, I could pull the quote, but it's pretty close to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no measure of health whatsoever. Sorry to interrupt, please.
That's a beautiful quote. That makes total sense, kind of in what we're experiencing right now in our culture. It seems like these ideologies are like pathologies, according to Gad Saad. You guys know that dude?
Yeah.
Gad Saad. Gad Saad.
I don't.
Saad. Gad Saad. He's a psychologist from. Is he from Palestine, Dana? Where is he from?
I think he's Lebanese.
Lebanese, okay.
But
well, he's a wonderful psychologist who basically, along the lines of what Krishnamurti's outlining in that quote, basically how right now culture is like stricken by these bad ideas that are in the form, like in his book. I haven't read it, but he talks about it on this podcast about how these ideas are like pathologies, basically. So,
no doubt, man, and are being like. You know, it's like, what was that scene when they started feeding gas en masse in Batman, you know, to make everybody all fucked up in the head? I mean, what's the most fucked up thing you can do to somebody? Yeah. What's the most fucked up thing you can do is you can gaslight them. Because what is the end of gaslighting? The end of gaslighting, right? Gaslighting terminates in a complete dissociative experience of no ability to rest, no ability to have a refuge in one's own mind. Essentially, to be locked and afflicted and abraded and whipped by the hindrance of doubt, which is the big one, right? There's the 5 hindrances in Buddhism, but the fifth, the mother of all hindrances, which contains the other 4, doubt, skeptical doubt, as it's known. But Peter, I interrupted you, and I'm so sorry. But just to put myself back into that thread, you, I believe, were asking me to maybe briefly introduce sort of how my experience sort of where that lands in the field of that personal transformation, just, you know, the sick societal zone that we're navigating, that we've always been navigating as artists, right? It's even tricky. Isn't it ironic that, I mean, I have a record out as a leader that cost a considerable amount of money, that I put a considerable amount of effort into, that I'd been thinking about I made it in 2010. I'd been thinking about making that record since I was at Berkeley, you know. And along the way, at that point when I was at Berkeley, I'd never heard anybody else who made a record that sounded even remotely like that. And of course, along the way, and I love how Victor, this is a sidebar, but it's great. It just came, you know. I love Victor Wooten's book, The Music Lesson. Can we just get, can I just like, just for a second, can we just, for Victor Wooten?
Yeah. Ow!
What a great man. You know, I bumped into Vic Wooten at the NAMM show a couple years ago. And, you know, Vic Wooten at NAMM is like Stevie Wonder at NAMM. He's got places to go, people to see. He's got shit to do. Y'all know what NAMM is, you know. And so I was there, and, you know, and I, you know, I had been there for quite a few times. So I was already like a seasoned, you know, like I know how to deal at NAMM. And I had just finished the showcase for NS Design, who I want to give a shout out to because they've been hugely supportive to me. NS Design's Ned Steinberger, who we know who that is. Yeah, Ned Steinberger. He made remember that headless guitar that Tony Levin played, the bass guitar?
Oh, yeah.
That's Ned.
Wow.
So Ned, so did another way, actually, what would have been really fun, Dana, is if instead, and I don't know, maybe this will actually do the trick, if instead of, let me see if I can do this quickly without getting in my own way, right? Let me see if I can do this quickly without getting in my own way. But instead of, my train of thought just derailed, but it doesn't matter. And I got to tell you, one of the most liberating things for this mind is like understanding, really more deeply understanding what Shantideva said. And Shantideva was the great bodhisattva, and he said he wrote this seminal text, but in there's this it's a supplication, really. And I wish that he could have been on a podcast, man. Because how deep would it be to go to, but we could do this, right? You could get The Universal Mind of Bill Evans. We can watch that right now if we want to. You know what I find myself saying all the time? Bro, I'm from Long Island. We have the technology. So when I run into a bug, you know what I say? I say like, oh yeah, it's a bug. And bugs are rough, right? It's like, and Dana, you're going to know about this. Peter, you're going to know about this. Lucas, I don't know. Lukács?
Either way is fine.
Hungarian, right?
Check, close enough.
Okay, all right. Betraying my ignorance and my desire to have my inferential abilities validated in the relational field. But that is vocabulary much more worth using than ego, because that is unfolding process. And what are we in the name of? To close the loop from before, feeling self-conscious about calling myself an artist. Bro, listen to this conversation. We're fucking artists. That's just what it sounds like. You know? Just because, and now I can do whatever. I used to say kill two birds with one stone, but I don't like that metaphor. I like feed two birds with one crust of bread. How about that, America? You know? With your giant fucking super size me. You know? How about that? How about feeding two birds with one crust of bread? This is Ned Steinberger's instrument. Yeah. And this thing, and you're going to hear it, right? This is just it right out of the box, right? And I'm not trying to do some kind of fucking promo game here. I'm just trying to make a point. Yeah. Let's see if it works. That'd be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
Whoa.
Right? So that's Ned Steinberger.
Gorgeous.
So yeah, man, and so like maybe I just do that, right? Why? Well, maybe I was playing electric on the gig that we did together, Dana, that we can't even remember.
Yeah.
But how crazy is it, right? We're two musicians, like, and I love your playing, bro. I've heard about your story, and over the years, man, I've been like, dude, fuck, I hope Dana's okay, man, because I heard
Yeah.
some harrowing shit through the grapevine, B.
Yeah. Hey, but that's but time
And I was thinking of you.
still stood still. I'm
Yeah.
still here.
Yeah. Not
Mm.
looking back, but I want to look around me now, right? That's that lyric, that one. Time
Yeah.
stands still.
I don't know where that's from, but yeah.
Rush. It's from Rush.
Ah.
It's from Rush. Time stands still, dude.
Time standing still. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Good
What
theme.
about this one? What about limelight? Living in the limelight, the universal dream for those who wish to seem, those who wish to be. Must put aside the alienation, get on with the fascination, illumination, the underlying theme. And then there's that dope line. It's sick, bro. Listen to the line. But it's all the information, man. It's all out there. And, I'll just say, just because it comes to me and then I recognize a practice that I'm into is called insight dialogue. And it's all about mindfulness internally and mindfulness externally, right? How much awareness is there of the energy that's coming off this unfolding process, aka Alan Grubner right now? A lot, right? Can I check that? Can I ask myself, is it benefiting self? Is it benefiting other? Is it benefiting both self and other? And then if my phonological loop kicks in and I have the time, I have that third moment, as it's known in the Tibetan tradition, in that break between stimulus and reaction, there's the third moment, if it's available, which is what? That's awareness. That's mindfulness. That's our most basic currency. I'm not an empowered Buddhist teacher. So everything that I'm saying, any good idea that is coming out, that is whatever, being transmuted or translated, and for that matter, apologies in advance for any of the essential teachings that are being lost in my own translation as a function of my own delusion, which it's simply unskillful to not acknowledge. Right? Which is why at the end of every Buddhist retreat that I've attended, there is a beautiful ritual where the teachers say, and now we want to, as a formal practice, ask your forgiveness for any way in which, by thought, by word, by speech, or by action, we have caused harm to you. Formally. It's like Ho'oponopono, that tradition in the Hawaiian spiritual tradition, right? In any order, please forgive me.
Forgive.
I forgive you. These are the 4 phrases that they use in Ho'oponopono. Please, in any order, which is the trip, right? In any order, dig. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. What if we set the container with that? What kind of world could we be living in? Why are we doing why? But the great news is we have the technology now. And dude, it's not an accident that there's that fractal background, behind you, Lukash. It's not an accident that, that there's a picture of bird behind me and next to bird is train. It's not an accident. It's not an accident that
I tripped out on Bird last night, man. We were playing some confirmation and steeplechase. Oh man, we were just doing a Bird set last night and just honoring him, man.
Wait, was it his birthday? Or something?
No.
Just honoring him. Just
We're
honoring him because that's what you fucking do.
Riff
If
off
you
you
know,
and your
you
picture.
fucking honor Bird because that's what you do, man.
Right. Like
You get down on your fucking knees and you cry for what happened to him.
What are you tickling the Dana, the alto right there or what?
Alto, yeah. the one with the white mouthpiece. Yeah, no, you're right, man. I mean, yeah.
Heartbreaking, man.
Bird's grace to this planet was it was
Dude.
beyond measure.
Yeah,
Mm,
you
mm,
know,
mm.
and who are the others, right? Who
Yeah.
are the
Mm.
guys that are on Mount Olympus right now that when we pass on, we'll get a chance to hang, you know, in some form.
Yeah, like I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe like we'll get a chance. Like, who are the other people? Jocko, man, the world
Mm,
wasn't
mm.
equipped. It couldn't
Yo,
help
yo, yo,
him.
yo,
Yeah.
Paul Jackson, he just passed
He did?
recently. So yeah, man, it was
2
on
days ago,
Mike Clark's Facebook page.
When was
He-
this?
Friday, I think.
yeah, and Mike Clark announced it on his
Oh.
Facebook page.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
man.
I'm not. I'll have to. I'm hip to the name, but I'm not actually. I'm not
Paul
making.
Jackson was the
All,
bass
all
player
you
for the
gotta,
Headhunters.
yeah, all you gotta know is
Oh,
Headhunters, man. Headhunters, yeah, that's it.
dude.
Wow, man.
That's all. Yeah, right
All
That's
the
there.
heavy. I
Herbie's
totally missed
funky
that,
stuff.
man.
Mm.
And
There's some
just like,
great videos with them playing duo, Mike Clark and Paul.
oh,
Right.
should we listen? Should we check out one right
Yeah,
now?
they're incredible.
Yo, should we screen share and fucking just check out? Like, I gotta watch my mouth. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Dude,
I
Dude,
don't want
I
this.
No,
be
no.
yourself. Be yourself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cool.
No,
And
no.
it's and thank you. I can't tell you how much it means. And also, like, I don't want the things that we have access to because of the lives we've led, and because of the grace we've received, that we have the privilege, we have the time, we have the shelter. We're having a Zoom conference right now, you know, like, and we're fed, you know, and we're okay, and people don't. So the last thing I want to do, I don't want anything I do to get in the way of making the teachings that have saved my life as broad, as ubiquitously available as they ought to be. If I do anything to limit, you know, if I do anything to limit the free access, or rather, I'll say, if I do anything to create resistance that doesn't need to be there, what a disservice. And how heartbreaking such a disservice would be to do mindlessly, which I do all the time, because that's delusion. What a disservice, because y'all know my heart is pure. I have the degree. I have a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. I earned that. It hurt to get it. Really, really bad. I'm not going to talk about that. But I earned that, you know. So you know my intentions are pure, and yet my energy could theoretically alienate. Wow, what a deep teaching. What a deep teaching, you know. This mind heart runs hot. It is my karma to respond skillfully to that and to find out how to make that an asset for both self, other, and both. And before I open my mouth, I hope I train in, right now I train in, is what I want to offer. Is it true? Right? The acronym that came to me was TUT-K, right? Is that the one I used? Then I left it and I started using another one. Then I actually just started letting it flow. So let me just do that. So is it true? Is it kind? Is it beneficial to both self, other, and self and other? And right, true, kind, beneficial. Is it timely? You know.
So, Alan, I kind of feel like we just witnessed you embodying your personal transformative journey. Which is really deep to see it that way, and for how that came through you, rather than you like telling a story that went from, you know, through time, like chronologically left to right, and you know, told stories about people and exact experiences. You kind of just lived it right there. You showed us your inner process. You showed us your musicianship, your connection to lineage, the depth of your open heart, and and vulnerability, man. I mean, that was a lot to be a part of, man. And I hope you feel us holding the space for you, and
Couldn't do it without you, man. I
yeah.
wouldn't be here without you. And that's the thing. It's so clear to me. Like we belong to one another. You know? What I do to my own mind. But if dig this is what's so crazy, right? This is what trips me out. There's this widely accepted expression that you might hear in some circles. And it goes like this. If another person did to me what I do to myself in my own mind, I would kill them. Have you heard that expression ever? Have you ever heard anybody say that?
That makes total sense.
Have you? Okay, so dig.
Yeah.
Right now, if we
This is can we just hold that for a second?
yeah, I want to work with it though.
Yeah.
I might lose this thread, Peter. But let's
Well,
go.
I
can do
don't.
it. Go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we can
please.
hold the thread
Yeah.
because I want to actually hold that thread.
Yeah.
I feel like my couples counselor right now. She's like, whenever something comes up that's like important, she's just like, let's slow down and
Digest that.
yeah, get into another layer. But rather than like ask you to go deeper, I kind of want to just
please
make sure that we're like handing that idea around because
please
that resonates really deep with me. And I think some of the most intense anger, actually like pretty much the most intense anger that I've ever felt and expressed has well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but interpersonally has come from that kind of dynamic of somebody is like, for instance, pushing the buttons of pressure that I put on myself.
I love the way you just articulated that. Let's write that down.
Well,
it's recording.
Stemming from what you said, and it's like taken me to a breaking point.
Yeah.
To a real breaking point where it's like I needed to go because I needed to, I mean, whatever needed means, but I benefited from going there, unwillingly, but going there. Because it revealed to me the inner pressure and the inner dialogue that I'd been to some extent suppressing.
Right. So the fire of purification. Yeah.
And it took that external what was the quote that you said, that if somebody said
if somebody did to you
what you do to yourself inside,
if somebody did to you what you do to yourself inside your own mind,
inside your own mind,
kill that person.
Kill that
right?
person.
I mean,
now I would, as a sidebar, I'd be a lot more careful with that language than people generally are, and I think but please go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, and of course, like, I didn't want to kill that person, but I
oh no,
but I wanted to separate from that person in every possible way, in the most intense center of that moment, right?
Full on aversion.
And when you realize that's actually touching something that you're doing to yourself, right? I mean, over the course of a couple of hours, I worked that out to a certain extent of like, oh my goodness, this is connected directly to something that is inside me that arises from my own story and my own internal pressures. It's like a gateway to liberation in a way. Because
it is. It's not in a way, bro. And there's the expression: if it's in the way, it is the way.
Yeah, that's get into the resistance, right? Dana, you look like you had something to say now. I'm done with my story.
I'm reading something, an observation you had last night of watching Stephen Harrison. You wrote, Peter, personally, this is what you're quoting, what Stephen said, actually. Personally, I enjoy my own confusion. It's a much more relaxed life.
Oh, bro, I'm so glad you're
Then,
quoting this right now.
then we don't have to worry about enlightenment so much.
Dude, what a coyote teacher Stephen Harrison is, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the thing, I was telling Peter before, it was almost too much for me. Because like like, okay, so let me just ask you. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Dana, because I thought that moment
Yeah,
was absolutely a fascinating moment.
yeah.
Because in that moment, I was actually like, wow, the way he's teaching right now is really subtle. And I'm pretty sure that the people that, and with all due respect, and with all awareness that I don't speak German, and the vibe in that container, that was for my money, that was a weird interview for a lot of reasons. And I was telling Peter, like, I don't know, but I'm so glad. But in that moment, I was like, dude, they have no idea how much he's fucking with them right now.
I think they did.
You know what I'm talking about? In that moment, though, I would almost ask that we engage a screen share and actually revisit that.
I'm totally down.
Check this out. This is beautiful. Yo, let's do that. Do I have the ability to share screen right now? I do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Do you have that video up?
I will get it in a second. I'm gonna just start
There's
share
only like
sound,
3 of them
optimize video.
on
I can't
YouTube.
optimize for video, but it's okay. Share. This is Chrome that you're looking at right now, and now I'll jump there from Peter Stoltzman. I notice it's so crucial to talk out loud in order to keep oneself on track in the midst of a multi-leveled conversation. And can we just sidebar talk about attention as our most basic currency, not time? The first answer is, oh, money, right? No, not money, time. Time is money. Oh, I'm smart, I got it. Nah, B, not time. How you direct your attention in time. And what is going on with the forces whereby stock earnings for the biggest companies are directly correlated with end time for user on screen? What we basically have is a large scale, this just came to me now, but the greatest large scale grand larceny of all time.
Right, hijacking people's time.
No, it's worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much worse, Lukash. It's so much worse. Hijacking people's most basic currency. That which makes it possible. Makes it possible for you to save a life. How many lives have been lost due to a dearth of attention that could have otherwise been there? Lately, an insight for me has been the relationship between, well, I really went deep there, and because I was in the middle of this other task, I'm really like, the CPU is like grinding right now. But I have faith. I have faith, and I know that it's not a problem, because I also know that the way things are is, if I let go of that. Remember I said about anyone who wants to get on stage, you be a little bit dubious. Why? Because if we know what's true, it's like Johnny Shannon saying in another song, you know, and I've told Peter, John Shannon's like my favorite musician of all time, you know. It's not, I'm not saying this to be cute or to do some PR, you know.
Waking Vision, John Shannon?
All of John Shannon.
All John Shannon.
All,
the totality.
The totality of John Shannon is the totality of music as I know it. I mean, and again, I'm talking about the spirit. I'm talking about, essentially, what am I doing? I'm deifying John Shannon. And what is the use of theism, right? What is the function of deification? I'm just going to leave that alone. But the thing that I'm interested in is, right, because it's recorded, we can hopefully.
Hey, Alan.
Yeah, I hope we'll do it again. Go on.
I'm just gonna.
We're
can
still
you,
sharing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're sharing your email.
God, oh shit. Well, this is also like a really beautiful Zoom, like, there's that, right? So, okay, so I'm sorry, forgive me, right? I went beyond my limits. But you guys created a container where I could go beyond, and then you brought back the power of limits. How badass is that? My favorite chapter in this book, which was given to me by the teacher whose house I'm caretaking in college. My favorite chapter in this book is what? Is the chapter called The Power of Limits. Where is it? The work. It's in the work. The subheadings under the work. Can you see them? Can you guys read that?
Sex and Violins is the first subchapter. I like this book already.
Everybody's read, everybody in jazz, right, for the most part, that's been hip has gotten Kenny Werder's Effortless Mastery, right? This is actually a writer who's also an improvising viola player. There's a lot of reasons why everybody should read this book in high school. Okay. Now, I just remembered that there was a loop I hadn't closed about my experience with Vic Wooten at NAMM. Let me just close that real quick. Now that we're back off the screen share, and we'll come back there. And you see the way that I'm using language and I'm using talking to myself, which you learn growing up. Don't talk to yourself. We don't talk to ourselves in American culture. We're the strong, silent type. Yeah? Why? So somebody else can control your mind for you. No thanks. And you know what? If it worked, man, fine. But look at the mess it's made. And it has worked because we're here. So there's that absolute and relative holding that's just like we have to train in order to understand how to hold space like this. Right? Yeah. I mentioned before that thing with people are always saying like that Dandapani TED Talk, right? People are always saying focus. You tell your kid, focus. He had everybody raise their hand who has ever been told to focus, right? And then he had everybody raise their hand, and there's a big TED, several thousand people, I think, in the TED Talk. Everybody, now raise your hand if you've been systematically taught how to what does that mean, focus? Systematically taught how to cultivate samadhi. How many hands do you think went up in the audience? How many light bulbs went on about, are we not at the zenith of irony now? And that this is standard operating procedure? We tell our kids, focus, focus, focus. And then when they don't know how to do it, we prescribe medication because there's something wrong with them? It would be very different if you actually ran a scientifically controlled experiment, and before you prescribed medication, you took everybody and you taught them, mindfulness practice, and then you reevaluate it and see, maybe that might help. Well, I don't know about you, but I said I wasn't going to talk about some things that I am going to talk about now. And one of those things is I have been prescribed the entire gamut. Okay? And I'm not going to say more than that. And that shit didn't do shit. Yeah. And they said, you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life. And they put me on some stuff. Okay, check me out, right? I'm 5'6.5". I'm pretty fit, right? I'm in pretty good shape. I was 227 fucking pounds, courtesy of Zyprexa.
What the fuck, dude?
I've taken that drug myself, unfortunately. So
now I can let go of everything, and I want to yield space to you, and I'll just jot down the loops I wanted to close.
Yeah, well, there's the Victor Wooten.
I'm gonna jot
and also the Stephen Harrison.
But
right. what's coming to mind right now is someone we've talked about a few times on this podcast is Gabor Mate.
Sure.
Are you hip to him?
In the realm of Hungry Ghosts. I haven't read the book, but of course I know about it.
Yeah, and I haven't read his books either. I've only listened to just countless hours of him speaking to different groups in different situations at different points and
AKA read
a fictitious time. Yeah, precisely. I get a lot out of hearing someone improvise in a live situation.
And that's how the Buddha's teachings were recorded. That's exactly, the tradition in insight meditation in Western, in the Thai forest tradition is not to have prepared Dharma talks so much as to extemporize. Yeah. So please go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But no, there's something he talks a lot about ADD actually,
Mm.
and ADHD, and what and kind of how it's tied to, in his eyes, his own and other people's, or it's tied to their trauma and their reaction to a situation they really couldn't get out of when they were just too young to have any power, or when they're kids, you know. There's reaction to either shut down or completely disassociate, and these coping mechanisms to deal with situations that we can't get out of end up being personality builders and
Right.
shaping how we deal with different situations.
Yeah,
But
maladaptive coping strategies. So, but we're
yeah,
talking about what we're talking about right now. Just so I'm clear on it, right? Is essentially we're talking about the concept of conditioning, right? We're not
yeah,
specific to ADHD, right? That's kind of there's a lot that could be said about ADHD, and there's a lot that could be said about the whole DSM, whatever the fucking 6 or whatever they're on now, you know, fucking with people,
I
you know,
don't even.
the
It's
diagnostics,
the
it's yeah, you know,
it's like
diagnostic and statistical manual for basically telling people the conditions that govern the workings of their mind.
Yeah,
so it
I
basically
think
has like
that should
every
also.
diagnosis of every named disorder, whatever, and then
Disorder, what a fucked up concept that is.
right,
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
and
The
but
Native Americans had Heyoka. Let's look into that.
well,
That's
and then
we shot that.
yeah, anyway, just like the practical application of that is that like unless you have like if you want to get treatment, you want to get it covered by insurance, you know,
Right.
if you need medication or you know would benefit from some medication, etc. It has to be diagnosed under that, you know, something that's in DSM.
It's the manual so that
It's
insurance
like
can charge money and justify itself.
it's a
This
book like
is
this, you know, like
Oh
this
my
is
it's
this
God.
is
Webster's
all
dictionary.
based on the wrong currency, aka.
Exactly. This is
Mm.
based on the capitalist currency. And I'm not interested in doing a blow up
Mm.
capitalism thing, but
Well,
capitalism, the ethos behind it, what it places primacy on and what it ignores. It
yeah,
ignores how we do what we do.
and the whole fact that we feel the power, uh, the power for us to change lies within that framework is a problem to begin with. You know, the thinking that we have to go through that system is to their advantage and to our disadvantage.
When you say
Look
to
at it
there,
from.
do you mean pharma? Just to be clear.
I'm talking about pharma. Anyone whose currency is
Mm.
monetary.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think there are positive in certain situations. I mean, I know people who are literally schizophrenic. Okay,
Right. Me
Mm.
too. Yeah.
there are people
And they're awesome.
that yeah, precisely.
And they're beautiful.
And
And their
luckily
minds
there
work
are.
in a beautiful way to be embraced,
Yeah,
not to be
Mm.
declared as aberrant. Who
right,
benefits? That's the
right.
question we should be asking always in a capitalist system. If we're not asking that question, we are not being responsible.
Mm. Who
Right.
benefits? The people who are meditating on their balance sheets, dude.
Yeah, but check this out. Let's go one order into the esoteric. Who benefits? Those of us who, at the speed of pain, at the speed of suffering caused by those people that you just addressed, have been propelled, right? That's why they say, like, hey, man, there's no getting enlightened in the Deva realms because
Mm.
there isn't the requisite combination. There isn't the availability of suffering. There's a reason it's called the first noble truth.
Mm.
And it's a
But
task that comes along with it. What is the first noble truth? Right?
I,
There is suffering, not the awful mistranslation that everybody fucking bandies about. Life is suffering.
Life is
Wrong.
suffering. Right.
Wrong. That is wrong, and that is a corruption, and that is propaganda against a spiritual technology that has offered me the toolkit for managing the human condition, the stereo instructions I was looking for since I'm 9 years old, when I had a sneaking suspicion that even though these adults who seem to provide for me and know the score, and they're the ones that know what's going on, I have a sneaking suspicion I seem to know more about happiness with my liberated child's mind than they do. And that doesn't make any sense. Maybe
Well,
I shouldn't be taking direction from the conditioning.
I strongly agree with that last statement for sure. I'm in terms of framing in my mind this whole shit show, if you will.
Well,
Or,
good.
or,
Well,
or
good.
this whole
I
love
can't,
fest. Or this whole love fest.
or love fest, but from the just go with me for a second.
Various perspectives at once.
Yeah, however you want to label it, because the label is really pointless. Uh,
Well, it's not pointless. It's a finger pointing at the moon. Sorry, had to do it.
yeah.
I mean, if you set it up, I'm gonna come in and knock it down.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the words never go as far as, but what I'm trying to aim at a particular perspective or actually group of perspectives.
Yeah.
I there's a couple of things that I've checked out over the past few days and that are still at the top of my mind. One of them is I hope this isn't controversial, but Sam Harris's view on free will. He
That's
finally,
my man. Come on, let's get down with Sam Harris.
Yeah.
No, wait, are you hip to David White?
David White, that name sounds really familiar. I think I've heard him on his podcast. I'm not sure, but
Alan, hold that thought.
He finally tied the bow on the free will, or at least he says he has. He's probably going to go back to it at some point. But when we think about the way the system has evolved, we often talk about it as if it's, and maybe there is, who knows, but like there's somebody that's in control, consciously in control of how it is now, versus it's evolved this way sort of unconsciously. So when we talk about the capitalist system and the way it is, and we all see what the problem is, and why looking at it in the frame of money versus actual health and enlightenment, if we want to use that word to play around with. I think a lot of people are true to themselves, and we're only a product of what we've been surrounded with. And a lot of people have power and just have never been exposed to anything close to what we're talking about, or see it, or have been exposed to it enough and have power enough to make any real change. To me, it feels, and if I can just zoom out again on this whole podcast, we started off this podcast, episode 1, really steeped in the macro. And this podcast seems like we're really getting closer to the micro. And maybe that's an oscillation that can happen throughout the lifespan of this podcast. But when we're talking about the micro stuff, the macro stuff, it seems maybe more sinister than it might actually be, due to the fact we can't choose who we are and choose our experiences.
This is a fascinating point, and I just want to ask that you be really careful with the language now.
Sure, and that I'm throwing it out there as it's coming to as the forms are popping out of my brain to be shot at, or to be played with, if we could say.
Right, and that's what a teacher of mine likes to say. Let's not do meditation. Let's play meditation. Right? How about this? When we meditate, probably safe to assume all 4 of us have some experience with that. I'd be really surprised if we didn't. But
not as much, but yeah.
We take that as so in whatever form, right? When we meditate, the great teacher Ajahn Utejaniya, who has a very, very different, very loose, his whole thing is continuous mindfulness in any posture. When you go to a Tejaniya retreat, I haven't been on one, but it's just, you'll see a block on the schedule of like 4 hours that just says continuous mindfulness in any posture. Right? Now, let me show you something. Okay, so I've been doing, I've done in-person retreat, and I've done, the longest retreat that I've been on is 8 days, right? 8-day silent retreat, and we know what that is, right? But the schedule looks something like this. All right, this is the sheet from the Matthew Brensilver retreat, right? Who I mentioned, or maybe I mentioned to Peter before, but would like to talk about him. But Oh yeah, here we go. All right. So it looks like this was on California time.
Hey, Alan,
Oh,
does
yeah.
this connect to what Dana was saying? I'm just curious
Yes.
because it seems
Yes.
like we've
Yes, it
gone
does.
somewhere
It
totally
does.
different.
I'm sorry, I got distracted, but it does connect. So here's the schedule, right? You sit, walk, you sit, walk, you sit, walk, right? And that's what you do. And when you do that, you create this seclusion. And in that seclusion, the mind is not stirred up and disturbed in such a way. And I'm realizing as I'm doing this, Peter, I'm so grateful that you brought me back, because I think I got distracted all along. I'm sorry, Dana, you were just talking about, can you just jog me for a sec, Dana?
Yeah, just how free will comes in and how we want to
Oh no, now I remember. Thank you.
frame. Yeah.
So what I'm responding to is the idea that the macro, right? You said, if I heard you right, correct me if I'm wrong, the macro makes it seem more sinister than it may actually be.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate to what you were
Mm-hmm.
saying? So I didn't say anything. Unfortunately, I can use the technology to mute this, right? Because the mind, it's not me that has all these ideas, that is having a hard time yielding space. And it's heartbreaking because I love you guys. And I already know what this mind thinks. And I photographed somebody. I was at my friend's house the other day, and she had a sign that she handwrote that said, "I never learned anything while I was talking." But dig, that's not my experience, right? And we could go into that. But anyway, so my first response, and I was really glad I could mute myself because I muted it, was, no, bro, it's a lot worse. It's really, I mean, it's more.
It's more than sinister.
It's more
sinister
sinister
than it seems.
It's both and.
I agree with that.
Yes.
It's
How
both
so?
and. It's conditioning. It's like just pure ignorance and just like going with conditioning of like, this is what I do. And there are also people and forces at play that are willfully moving things in those directions, that are shaping conditioning willfully, and there are other people who are not. They're just going with conditioning.
And what's the percentage? And do those people who are purposefully who are pulling the strings, let's say, do they have real?
I think
do they even have the possibility of knowing what we're talking about?
Right. Well, that's their conditioning too, actually. Right. And that's where it's both and, because the deepest sinister shit is still conditioned. Right.
Yeah, because we all have pure hearts, man. So people said to Ram Dass, like, I think Ram Dass's teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, might have said to Ram Dass when he was talking about seeing, doing therapy. I think I might be screwing this up, but the point is still there. So I love Ram Dass, right? We know who Ram Dass is. Ram Dass, aka Richard
Herb Alpert. Yeah.
Right? Richard Alpert, who happens.
I'm not actually.
Herb Alpert.
Yeah.
Herb Alpert. I know. Sorry.
That's what came to mind.
Towards like a
right,
jazz
yeah.
world.
Yeah, right.
I've heard of Leary.
Yeah, Richard Alpert was Ram Dass. He wrote "Be Here Now," the famous book called "Be Here Now." Yeah, you got to check out Ram Dass.
Dude, I was sheltered as a kid.
Okay, hang on. So was I. And the only reason I see this is because I'm back at my teacher's house. My teacher, Fred Haas, who some of you guys might know.
Sounds familiar, that name.
Yeah, Dana, I think Fred knows you're playing,
That name sounds really,
Fred's bad. Fred's got Parkinson's, and let me tell you, that's one of the reasons that I'm moving up here. I'm leaving New York. It's so beautiful that I know that what matters to this heart is that my mentor changed my life, and then I did what I had to do to sustain that relationship over the years and keep it alive in my heart. And now it's come full circle, and I'm pulling stuff off his bookshelf. And he told me, he said, Alan, I didn't tell anybody this, but I'm going to tell you. I never told anybody before, but I have a lot of materials in my house that I've just been waiting around to get into. The time hadn't come yet. And he didn't know about this. I could say more, but I'm not going to. And the fact that I've held this up as long as I have should indicate some things, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So, okay, so now just to address open and closed loops. One, I want to honor the fact that I've been doing way more. There's been way more of this coming from here. And so, first of all, I want to just offer a possibility, which could be that I might not speak. I would set what I like to call sometimes Alan's shut up timer, right? Which is what I was using Zoom to do, right? Because in a Zoom interaction, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
I have a visual cue for it. Man, that's really deep, you know. So to close the loop, so one, I want to honor that, all right? And now two, so let's hold that two. There's the several open loops. Let's close the easiest ones first, okay? Is that okay?
Wooten.
All right, so the easy one is the Vic Wooten story. I'm at NAMM, I just played the thing, I see Vic walking by. You can't miss Vic. Dude's real short. He's so short, you can't miss it. Because he's so short and his vibe is so big that he's so short just makes more room for his aura to be like, what's up?
It's like an optical illusion when you see him perform on stage. He's as big as life. He's like, you know.
Well, that always happens, right? That's not particular to Vic Wooten. That's how the stage works. Okay, we'll just leave that one alone, right? Okay, and then again, circling back to what we discussed initially, like be skeptical, be dubious of anyone on stage. Because you don't know at what point they are in the process. Because everybody on stage at some point in the process, do I need to go on about that? No, we've been there, we've done that, we got off that train, and that's why we're on this one. Yeah? So I said, Vic, man, and it was weird because I met him, but we didn't remember, you know, before. Of course he didn't remember. I fucking remembered, you know. I mean, you know, that's like one of the first concerts I went to, like Flight of the Cosmic Hippo and shit.
Oh my God, yeah,
Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, you're blowing my fucking mind right now. What? You know? Yeah. So I said, hey, Vic, man, and it was weird because I felt this in my heart. Like, and there was all the cultural conditioning, like, yo, you don't know this dude. Be professional, you know? Be cool. Sidebar, have you guys seen that episode on Rational Funk by Dave King? The one where he does, I got to send this to you and we should talk about it. Kenny Grow, you know Kenny Growhowski? Dana, you know K-Grow?
I don't.
He's a bad motherfucker. He does a lot of stuff with Zorn. He's a metalhead. He's like Sean Rickman, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because Rickman, he's a fucking metalhead.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's Kenny Growhowski. Check out Kenny Growhowski. Hit me to this podcast that Dave King has been doing Dave King.
Yeah.
Right. And the episode, the title of that episode is How to Get the Gig. Okay. Yeah, now I don't have to. See, I just absolved myself of that responsibility because I gave you the query terms.
All right, so back to that.
So closing this loop.
Vic,
I got it. Closing this loop. I'm like, Vic, man, this is weird because I know you're in a rush and I'm so grateful that you stopped and I don't want to spool out because I can't help myself. All that's in my mind. Now I know this better today, right, than I did then. It's a few years ago. But man, like, I can't tell you how much, like, and I was like, no, dude, you're playing like, forget about your playing. And bro, I love your fucking play. Like, your playing changed my life. Forget about your playing. And when the moment I said that, time stopped. And NAMM went dead quiet in this mind's ear. Because sound is a co-creation, right? Like right now, the sun is shining and the blue sky is there, and it's the most beautiful thing I'm not seeing right now. And it's so there. Like another teacher says to me something, stuff's coming in, right? The channel's open. Like whatever you're going through, however hard it is, however much reactivity there is, however much tension, however much of that grieving your process, however much metabolizing, how grinding the metabolizing is as you come to terms with the conditioning and how much we hurt each other. I love at the last track on a Jason Linder record, Now Versus Now, the first one, Ahimsa. Have y'all heard that? We should listen to that shit together after this. You know, what about the violence that we are doing to one another? Like, when you get hip to that, it's so intense and so staggering. But anyway, time stopped, and he looked at me, man, and it was like, I mean, I really feel this, you know? This is my experience. Like, it was like one soul, like, was like, yo, thank you for seeing me. It means so much to hear that what I thought was so important and so needing and so overlooked is so important to you. Thank you for showing me that we belong to one another. And the reason that there isn't more of that going on, what kind of a world will we live in then? What could we do? Have you guys read *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari?
I've heard of that book.
Yeah, check it out.
Same thing. I've heard
Check it
many,
out. That book is
even in the
required
past
reading.
week.
That book is
I've heard
required
many
reading.
hours of him talking on it. Yeah.
Okay, then you don't need to read the book. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, and to your point, Dana, you know, all the talks, like the great Buddhist talks, like I had said, they were extemporized. So when you read, for example, a phenomenal book that I sent to you, Peter, called Training in Compassion. Yeah, Norman wrote that because Norman Fisher is a Zen priest and a poet and a very, very, very great writer, you know. But most of that is just transcribed from his talks. Sidebar, Norman Fisher also gave a talk in the last year on race, jazz, and drugs, and the tragedy of what happened, you know, particularly Dana, to your, you know, to your ancestors, as there's like people like, you know, you guys know the story of Eric Dolphy, man. Eric Dolphy's supposed to be alive today. Eric Dolphy never did drugs. The reason Eric Dolphy's dead, you know that. Yeah, I can see, you know, that shit is fucked up. If you remove the construct of racism and you remove now you can't think this way, right? Because you can't subtract. You can't figure, Buddha said, don't try to figure out karma, bro. Your mind will fucking explode. And I don't know about you guys, but I tried. I ran the experiment as per the Buddha's instructions, because the Buddha was the guy who said, yo, don't believe anything anybody tells you. Why should we believe you? Somebody said to him, like, he said, yo, don't believe me. And don't believe that guy with that spiritual teaching. Don't believe anybody. Take what seems to resonate, check it out, and let me know what works and what doesn't. And let's figure this shit out together. You know? So anyway, but you know, all the point is all of it is the point. And what happened? It's not what happened to a bird. Like, well, you think it's an accident? All the guys we lost? You think it's an accident they got lost to heroin? It's not a fucking accident. It's not because they were weak. It's not because they didn't know the score. It's because they were actually so hip to what was going on that it fucking burned them up. And that's why when Philip Seymour Hoffman died of an overdose, Jim Carrey said sometimes for the most sensitive of us, the volume is just too loud. And that's tragic, man. And we judge people for that. You're going to judge Charlie fucking Parker?
I think those types of folks are generally become the artists. Those who
yeah, man, it's not an accident.
Someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone labeled sensitivity as you feel the same thing more than someone else. The same amount of pressure applied to that person is going to be felt more. You know, and you go through life like that. You know, on a sensory level, and all of these, you know, taking it back to ADD and what Gabor Mate says about how trauma shapes who we are. Those who are sensitive and goes and maybe take the same action as more traumatic will have more exacerbated protection mechanisms that end up shaping, you know, who they are.
So what's the natural response to that? Compassion, right? That's what you're teaching right now.
Well, that's what it should be, but unfortunately there are lots of those who can't relate and are like, well,
then it's not they can't, they just haven't been given the decoder ring.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all.
Well, that's encompassed in my can. But yeah,
Right. And what are we trying to do?
yeah.
We're trying to share the decoder rings that we got, right?
Yeah.
That's the only reason we're here, right?
And maybe the question is, what is the best way to go about that? I mean, as there is Martin Luther King, there is Malcolm X. There are different approaches in attempts to reach the same goal.
Well,
But,
hang on, Dana. Question: Did
Yeah.
Malcolm X and Martin Luther King have the same goal in your estimation?
Well, you're precisely right.
I
They
don't know. No,
were-
that's honestly, and what's deep is that's a question. I don't know because I don't know their estimation.
their goals both changed throughout their career.
Uh-huh.
So, but I
Did
think
Kings change? Because my understanding is that
the
Kings
focus changed
Yeah?
for King. When the focus changed to the war and to poverty
Hmm.
versus equality for African Americans, when
But that's one ball of wax, isn't it?
well, of course, yeah, we see it as that, but the powers at B don't see it
Right.
as that.
My understanding of King, and the reason I believe that Thich Nhat Hanh and Dr. King had such a close friendship, and that did you know that wait a minute, just for the podcast, does everybody know that Kendrick Lamar's record from 2018, Damn, won that year's Pulitzer Prize for music?
Damn.
I think I remember that. I mean, I know that it got
It's a problem
a lot of
that
shit.
it's a problem that I did not know that. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Because we're self-selected, right?
Well,
And
do you know
we need to
anybody who
know.
won Pulitzer prizes? I mean, I don't
do,
pay
actually.
attention to that. You
I
were
don't
an
pay atten-
you
I
were an
don't pay
English
attention.
major at Dartmouth.
Bro, I don't pay attention, but that's not the point is what?
I'm not sure there's a
point
real
is-
point to the awards and all
But
that
listen,
shit.
no,
honestly.
hang on a second. Let me make this point. The point is that's a really important record. Everybody's talking about. There's all of this talk, and I'm sure we're sensitive to this as musicians. There's all this talk, and with deference, operating from my own location, right? Acknowledging my own location, acknowledging that it is a privilege that I have the opportunity to be here with you guys, particularly that we as three white dudes have the opportunity. What a grace, what a gift we've been given as white dudes to have music, to show us the holes in the Swiss cheese bullshit of the conditioning, right? So that's a privilege that we have and that we can remember. And so it is important that in the eyes of the hegemonic forces in the creative field, whatever fields, that a Black, super, super intensely, really calling it like it motherfucking is, and using a lot of foul language to do it, won the Pulitzer Prize for music. That's pretty important. And don't you think if the powers that be say that warrants, like that in and of itself is something that's even more important to be aware of, has implications. And so I implore everybody who's interested in race to maybe take a break from Robin DiAngelo, because that's great, and maybe take a break from Resma Menakem, because he's great, and if you really want to know about race, maybe you should start and when I say you, I'm talking to, you know who I'm talking to. Why don't we just start right here? Because if you want to know about race, you don't need Robin DiAngelo, and you don't need Resma Menakem, and you don't need contemporary psychology. All you need is your own humanity and your own heart. You don't need to read a book, but we do need to get hip to how this dude has been ignored. We do need to get hip to how that dude had to suffer. We do need to get hip, man. It matters, Peter. And again,
Yeah, it's
this
beautiful.
is coming from a place of deep concern. And it's not, I'm embarrassed by any any shred of energy that may have suggested any reactivity to feeling something was misunderstood, because that's not the intention.
Well, I don't mind misunderstandings. I think they're beautiful gateways to understanding.
Right. No. But that was, I actually didn't ask for forgiveness for the human tendency that involves the human condition, which part and parcel of which is misunderstanding. I asked for forgiveness for anything that I have done to obscure the intention, which is just the pure desire to connect with another human being. So if something, and this is a very important point for me relationally, right? Because all we care about as musicians is the relational field, right? As the moment I stop thinking about the relational field, I start playing a shittier solo. The moment that I love how, there's a lot of stuff for me in my mind, like I've had a lot of sparring in my mind's eye with the concepts as received through the channel of Hal Crook. Yeah, I've had a lot of like stuff in my head about that, because Hal, I think, is like an amazingly controversial figure in the most awesome sense.
Oh man, you just hit so many buttons when you said Hal's name.
I want to stop talking now.
Hal is the reason I even know about Stephen Harrison.
Okay.
And
that makes sense that Stephen Harrison came by way of Hal. That makes sense.
And I've had that there's 3 clips of Stephen Harrison on YouTube, period. So one of the clips I've had on there since I had a lesson with Hal back in September. And I finally was
had a lesson with Hal in September.
Oh man, Hal's and I'm planning on having more. Hal's my hero.
Beautiful.
But I was really particularly, because he's the one that even brought to my attention when we were back at school that, my relationship to ego. I never even considered it. I was in another religion at that point. It was a whole different thing. Anyway, so I've always appreciated him for who he is as a human being, as well as his skill as a teacher and as a player. Regardless, now I've lost my own damn thread. But the Stephen Harrison. So a couple questions for you, Alan. Well, first of all, your thoughts about Eckhart Tolle, and identification, when he talks about identification with the forms that come in our head. Identification with forms in general, whether it's physical or the forms that come in our head. And always as much as possible staying connected to that, if you will, for lack of a better term, that quiet observer that's being aware of all the forms. And again, not identifying with the forms, but realizing the forms have come from our past. It's almost like there's no choosing the forms often that come up. And that being said, when I connected with finally the past 2 days with Stephen Harrison, it put a lot of the years of Eckhart Tolle that I've listened to into like practical realization. For some reason it did. When I heard, maybe you can think Stephen was flippant in the way he was talking to those Germans, but something about being like the space between the one consciousness and the piece that you are, and playing with that resistance, and that resistance being the creative spirit.
Right. If it's in the way, it is the way. That just If it's in the way, it is the way. Right. And how are you going to meet it?
This conversation has been really interesting for me in that fields, if we want to use that language. I've been thinking about it a lot as I've been trying to follow your very non-linear style here, Alan.
As long as we cycle back and close the loops, that's a linearity, right?
You are not closing all the loops, and that's okay.
I got them here. We got them. They're written down. Just give me a chance, and I'll close them one after the other.
We don't have time. But
okay.
But the non-linear nature of the way your mind obviously works and your communication is like it's like exciting, and it's for me, just
it's exhausting
for myself.
For me, it's exhausting.
Well, there's a point, right, where I start to hit resistance, and I'm
Right.
noticing it in myself coming up
Great.
again and again.
Beautiful.
And I feel like, oh, this is like fodder for us to get deep
Yes.
into.
Yes.
We could have a retreat right now for like the
Yes.
next 6 hours and get
We could have
super
a retreat for the next 6 weeks.
super deep. We get personal and universal and
Great.
social and cultural and the whole thing.
Can I
But
jump in? Yeah, let me know when I can jump in.
see,
I have a
this
note.
is
Please go ahead.
this is where I'm hitting a resistance. You jump in like all the time, right?
I'm sorry.
Every time anybody says anything, you jump in and like go on a point that you want to make, and then you go to another point before you finish the point you're trying to make. You go to another point, and then before you finish that point, you go to another story about a book about the person, and then John Shannon. And it's like, it's very hard to follow, man. And it's very hard for any, like Lucas has said like 3 words this whole time, right?
Oh, I'm always limiting
that's kind of
my
Lucas's
speech
style
on here. I don't want to reveal too much.
but I say that all without I don't want to project any like judgment on you. I'm just noticing that that's like what's happening, and I'm genuinely trying to like hold space for it, allow the space for you to be authentic as you are, right? And for this conversation to unfold authentically. And I feel like my authentic place is to just say this right now, to not like jump on another narrative that I'd like to say about, because I don't even really have anything that but to be real about like my perception and the resistance that's coming up for me as this unfolds, right? And I'm noticing my own, not just the resistance, but like what that grid kind of says about me. And I feel it's very like what Stephen Harrison was talking about, where he's like, when you go into the resistance, when you name the resistance and you start to explore that, that's who you are. And I'm like, oh,
that's
this is
the dialogue.
This is some deep shit, right? Then now we're in your creative space, like right now, right? Because I'm naming my resistance, I'm naming what I'm perceiving, and I feel that grid of like time, right? I feel that okay, I've got a lesson at 12:15. Where do we want to go? Oh, maybe I could I have organized this a little better, or like, what can I do to shape this conversation? Like, I'm thinking about like all these structural things, and also like the constraints on my time, and where I have to be, and blah blah blah. And it's very revealing for me to sit in that and to be self-reflective in this moment and be like, how much of this grid serves me, and how much of it disconnects me from from other kind of fields of thought or feeling or perception that
relationality
that I might want to be more connected to. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So it really interesting, isn't it?
Kind of goes back to attachment as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Attachment to that grid or not, or attachment to a particular line of thinking, observation. But playing with that resistance is the creative spirit, is the takeaway I've gotten over the past couple of days and through this conversation that I think is really important for me to go forward through this next week, holding on to. I think it is oscillated a lot through the macro and micro through this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think
want me to answer
maybe
your question,
I
by the
think
way,
maybe
Dana?
I don't remember what my question is, but I think maybe I think focusing, I mean, the societal stuff and even the racial stuff, the stuff on the macro level seems, as we've talked about over the past 6 podcasts now, I forget where we are now, honestly, but the macro stuff seems to be a lot, although it is changeable, it's way less dealable and changeable than the micro, or our relationship to the field of the one consciousness and playing with that space, But
Say that again,
anyway,
man. Say that again. I need to hear that again. Sorry.
you're gonna make me do that?
It didn't sink in, man.
Sorry. Yeah.
All we do is circle back, though, so it's all good. I have a poem.
Focusing. Okay. We have the macro stuff we can't do a lot with.
Right.
Okay, right.
But
Focusing
no,
on.
But again,
Well,
I said a lot.
point.
I'm not saying totally we can't do anything about it, but in comparison to what we can do with our personal micros,
manageable
think-
scale. Where's the manageable scale?
That goes and affects the macro, though, by doing that, right? By going inward, you're actually then.
I think going to the macro from that perspective is definitely more useful than coming at it from any other direction. But I think if we here in general, but especially in this conversation, we're getting to the end of it now. But if we can focus on that playful resistance between the one consciousness and our personal beams of that consciousness, our personal experience, personal perspectives of that same one consciousness, right? This is to me, this is kind of like what Stephen was saying yesterday in that video that we watched. There's us, and then there's the space between us and the one consciousness, and the resistance of that realization is the creative space. I'm saying focusing on that creative space and how we're, as you started off, what you were saying, Peter, your relationship to the grid, your relationship to, and I don't know if that makes any more sense than the first time I said it, but that's kind of what I'm getting at.
We're getting there closer and closer to the source.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I focus at the end of the day, I think, is
Attention.
I think is useful, but I also think nonlinear speech is also really, really useful. So there's many approaches to having this dialogue.
Yeah.
But
I really
anyway,
want to, if I may, I really want to jump in right now and just take us back to a particular moment in time, and that was the moment in which this being here, represented as the digital avatar that you are perceiving on your screen, which is just a finger pointing at the moon, where the moon is consciousness as expressed through this unfolding process here. Yeah. It's absolutely crucial that we be just surgically precise with language at this point. And so it's very difficult for me. It's an invitation to mindfulness for me, because these are not my thought. This was given to me. There's a strange.
Can I challenge you, Alan, on that?
Yeah, but you gotta let me finish this point first. The point is, when you judged, when I received what really felt like judgment of my way of expressing myself as non-linear. Think about that for a second. And so I'm just going to plant a couple seeds, and around that, I'm going to plant dominant paradigm. Around that, I'm going to plant gridded. Around that, I'm going to plant, and you spoke to all of this. However, I only was able to receive what you had to say because I had the training to get beyond that very, very intense feeling of violence that registered for this being. I'm not saying that it was created by anywhere except here. Maybe I could go so far as to say co-created by conditioning, your expression of that conditioning, and the meeting of that with my conditioning, which includes my deconditioning. But when you say something is non-linear, that, let's just say, would not, for lack of a better way of putting it, and I want to be really careful, that would not be congruent with the approach to communication laid out, say, by somebody who practiced nonviolent communication.
Well,
Because to
that's
say,
not all of us for sure. You know,
right, and
Marshall
that's why.
Rosenberg. You know, yeah.
And
I mean,
that's why I want to come back to, and Peter, for you to say to me, as careful as I'm being, you're jumping in, and granted, to say my understanding, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, my understanding is that I was being invited in to be the guest. And that actually I haven't done 6 podcasts before this, and we've never even had a conversation before. So my assumption was based upon my conditioning, which comes from my experience of this paradigm, that actually is the something. And I am taking notes on everything. There is not a loop, a single one, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to do this, but I know I'm doing it. Yeah. Not a single loop needs going unclosed, because I have the technology and I am using it. Right? We are all cyborgs today. Anybody telling you different doesn't know how it really is. We are already there. Anyone who has, anyway, but my opinions are just opinions. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, it doesn't matter. But when you said what matters is the embodied experience, and it's a beautiful loop to come back to. Now, I'm not going to show off by queuing up the moment of that quote that we were referring to earlier with Dana, where I wanted to run the experiment of not using memory to recall in a distorted way and then play a game of telephone, but rather to co-creatively bear witness to that moment and then revisit it that close in. And I am not going to take us there because I don't need to, because now the goal, the thrust from that nonlinearity has solved that in a way that linearity never could. We have gone into so much more territory as a function of this nonlinearity. What I would not say nonlinear, I would just say organic. The very language betrays the violence of the conditioning.
Yeah.
And that is why I would like to propose or offer that we take a minute and hear this track that most everybody that I know, even in the jazz world, was asleep on, even though Kurt Rosenwinkel was playing guitar on it.
Sure.
Can we listen to that?
Can I say it was kind of one thing in response?
Yeah.
But the language and the limitations of the language are often a barrier to what we're actually pointing at.
Well, the words are just fingers pointing at the moon. The thoughts of your mother are not your mother.
Yeah. No, I dig that, but I'm saying I'm not sure. Yeah.
If the thoughts of your mother are not your mother,
Yeah, for sure.
how come we're so fucking careless with language? If we know that
well,
to be true,
because education is not equal.
No.
That's why.
That's fine. That's fair. That's a fair point. And I have had access because of privilege, right?
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I grew up in Berkeley High, but
you have access. No, man. We all have the internet now. We have access. All the poetry's there. We have access. We could study. We could learn to close read.
I think there's still room for a lot of misunderstanding and deception.
No doubt. Always. Take that to the only reason that I jump in is because that's a given. Yeah. That to me is a truth held to be self-evident.
I'm saying I understand the importance of precision. I mean, I really understand the understanding
just that we trust
of
that we're doing our best. How about that? Actually, that's the deeper thing. I trust that in this container, all 4 of us are doing the best we can to be as precise as we can. And that's what makes it possible. It's not actually the language precision. It's the commitment to clarity and the responsibility to not offload CPU work to others.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed some of that. Okay.
Should we listen to this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm curious if I know it already. I think I know everything that Kurt's on, but.
All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my speech to not get myself aggravated in the way that I have aggravated others, I think, productively, granted. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to simply go to the desktop and I'm going to simply open Spotify, where I hope the track is, because it wasn't there for a while. For a while, I switched to Apple Music, actually, not because I think Apple pays more, pittance more, than Spotify, but because I don't believe at the time this Now versus Now record was available on Spotify, and it was only available on Apple Music, and I was pissed off because my copy of the record got stolen, and I really wanted to hear this cut because it really mattered to me. And if it's not here, then I'll find it elsewhere, but it is. Okay, are we sharing sound and screen? Let me know how this sounds, and let's pay special attention to what happens right here.
Now, we know a lot about physical violence.
Does the sound good?
Yep.
Can we hear every word clearly? Yeah? Okay, let me restart that.
Now, we know a lot about physical violence because it's something that we read about all the time, and it's very evident, and it hurts. But what we are not really very conscious about is the passive violence that we are doing to each other all the time.
Yeah, while my lady sleeps.
Now we're up in it, right? We're above all of it now.
that we have to begin to look at things positively, and above all, we have to acknowledge the violence that we are doing ourselves to everybody and make the changes that are necessary in our own attitudes so that we can eventually change the world.
Was that you, Lucas?
What?
Is that
Yeah,
you?
for sure.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the bass, actually.
So I went to school with Panayotis, man. Panayotis is the guy that taught me about, that gave me like I always loved like timba. He introduced me to charanga habanera, NG La Banda, bamboleo. He introduced me to that, all that shit. And I took a drum lesson yesterday with my man MJ Lambert, aka Joe from the Shift or Leaders of the Shift. Y'all know Joe?
I'm not hip, man.
He and Ben Geist, the rhythm section. That's Sean's trio, yeah. But Ben and Joe are the rhythm section for Slick Rick and Big Daddy Kane, if I'm not mistaken. So and Joe was telling me, man. I said, Joe, when I play drums, which is something that I just do for myself, and now, I mean, I made a couple records as a drummer, but nobody knows that because it was back in the day. But I've always, kept that relationship, and that informs a lot of my violin playing very deeply, which is hard for me because a lot of people aren't interested in that from a violin player. Like just do your job and play like a fucking machine because that's what we pay you for. But that's another story. Anyway.
Yeah, roles are arbitrary.
Yeah.
In our
anyway,
land.
Yeah, but anyway, like I just I was gonna look for when that record came out, right, which was 2007.
God, it was that long ago.
Wow.
I remember.
It was 2007.
I remember that record.
So, Cats.
Anyway. Yeah, you got to run. You got to.
I do have to wrap it up very soon.
A young mind to shape.
I want to acknowledge there's a lot that came up in this conversation, and Alan, I appreciate you your deep honesty and authenticity here, and my apologies for any lack of clarity that we may have had, that I may have had in terms of expressing what my expectations were.
So beautiful to receive that. Thank you. So beautiful.
Yeah, because I hear that your expectations were to kind of like be almost like in a kind of like a featured guest role, where it's like and my expectations on this podcast are more of like it's going to be a conversation amongst the four of us.
So
and
when can we do that?
Another time for sure.
When can we do that again? Because it would please me more. Nothing would please me more than to have a chance to connect with you guys and to do this. And I'm going to share something with you all after. Yeah. So
great. You had mentioned that there was a David White, I think.
Oh God, do you think
poem?
we can listen to this? Do we have 7 minutes? It's going to be. I promise you. Okay, great. I'm on it.
So I think that would be maybe a beautiful way to end up.
Oh, perfect! Amazing. You can't do that with linearity. Amazing. Let me just find the requisite materials. Right, so what I have to do now is I have to disable. And I'm sharing what I'm doing in my methodology because it's a skill that's been useful for me, and maybe it'll be useful for others. Since I know that it's the Waking Up app and it's only iOS, I can get it by going directly here. And as I talk to myself, I can still be part of the mutuality, but language in this case is functioning to keep my mind on track and aware and how to respect the time. So without further ado.
To presence and a testament, friendship. Friendship is a mirror to presence and a testament to forgiveness. Friendship not only helps us to see ourselves through another's eyes, but can be sustained over the years only with someone who has repeatedly forgiven us for our trespasses, as we must find it in ourselves to forgive them in turn. A friend knows our difficulties and shadows and remains in sight. A companion to our vulnerabilities more than our triumphs, when we are under the strange illusion that we do not need them. A friend knows our difficulties and shadows and remains in sight, a companion to our vulnerabilities more than our triumphs, when we are under the strange illusion that we do not need them. An undercurrent of real friendship is a blessing exactly because its elemental form is rediscovered again and again through understanding and mercy. All friendships of any length are based on a continued mutual forgiveness. Without tolerance and mercy, all friendships die. Without tolerance and mercy, all friendships die. In the course of the years, a close friendship will always reveal the shadow in the other as much as ourselves. To remain friends, we must know the other and their difficulties and even their sins and encourage the best in them, not through critique, but through addressing the better part of them, the leading creative edge of their incarnation, thus subtly discouraging what makes them smaller, less generous, less of themselves. Friendship is the great hidden transmuter of all relationships. It can transform a troubled marriage, make honorable a professional rivalry, make sense of heartbreak and unrequited love, and become the newly discovered ground for a mature parent-child relationship. The dynamic of friendship is almost always underestimated as a constant force in human life. A diminishing circle of friends is the first terrible diagnostic of a life in deep trouble, of overwork, of too much emphasis on a professional identity, of forgetting who will be there when our armored personalities run into the inevitable natural disasters and vulnerabilities found in even the most ordinary existence. Friendship transcends disappearance. An enduring friendship goes on after death, the exchange only transmuted by absence, the relationship advancing and maturing in a silent, internal, conversational way, even after one half of the bond has passed on. But no matter the medicinal virtues of being a true friend or sustaining a long, close relationship with another, the ultimate touchstone of friendship is not improvement, neither of the self nor of the other. The ultimate touchstone of friendship is witness. The privilege of having been seen by someone and the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them and to have believed in them, and sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span on a journey impossible to accomplish alone. But no matter the medicinal virtues of being a true friend or sustaining a long, close relationship with another, the ultimate touchstone of friendship is not improvement, neither of the self nor of the other. The ultimate touchstone of friendship is witness. The privilege of having been seen by someone and the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them and to have believed in them, and sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span on a journey impossible to accomplish alone.
Okay, so guys, there's now 1 minute and 26 seconds of David White speaking on that poem that that it's a minute 26. If you want it, cool. If not, you can just hear it on your own at a later date. It might be really rich. Your call, Peter.
Let's hear it.
Friendship was begun after waking from a very, very realistic dream. A dream in which I'd been with a very, very close friend, a friend who had passed away. But in the dream, he was alive again with all of the joy of discovering he was actually still alive. And we were in a car, and it was an open top car, and we were driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, actually, with the sun going down on one side and the moon on the other. And we had our arms around each other's shoulders, and we were laughing and telling jokes. And we were also laughing about all the ways that we had consciously or unconsciously insulted and hurt each other over the years, and how we'd been good enough to forgive each other. And waking out of that dream and the joy of that dream and the forgiveness of that dream brought me to understand something of the essence of what it means to be a witness, and a forgiving witness at that, for a good friend. So, friendship, in constellations, the solace, nourishment, and underlying meaning of everyday words.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Yeah. No
Bless you.
problems.
Yeah,
Bless you, Alan, for being here.
yeah, you guys, really, thank you. You know, that is to feel in alignment with purpose. I'd given up on that possibility, and it came back. And that's something, man. Got to tip the hat to music.
No.
The family, the community, man. So important right now for us to all share in that experience and
So
be there
important.
for one another and elevate one another.
Yeah. Finding the leading creative edge, right? Thereby subtly discouraging those things which make us smaller and less generous. What if that's our mission? Hey, man, I'm just here to subtly discourage those things which make the people that I relate to smaller feel or have an experience that resonates with smallness or non-generosity. What if that is, what if that's the guiding principle? You know,
That's why
for
we all
us
play
musicians.
music. That's
Yeah,
that
right.
to me, that the tool for that is music.
And that's why everybody loves you, Dana. Anytime you hear the name Dana, and Dana and I don't even hardly know each other, man. But I've heard your name come up so many times over the years. And you guys know what it's like, man, when somebody says a name and it's a name that every time you heard it, it's all love.
Yeah,
What is that? What is
I
that
feel
gift that we
unworthy.
get?
Oh, you are worthy.
I
You are
feel
worthy.
very,
And
very
you know what?
unworthy, but that's
Yo,
fine.
check it out though. The Buddha apparently, and I don't know any of this stuff. Like I said, I'm not a teacher. I mean, we're all teachers. I mean, everything is everything. So everything is nothing, just the same. And that's a John Shannon lyric, and that's fine. You ask, I'll tell you where to go and how to get there. Anyway, but Peter, for
Yeah,
offering me the
yeah.
teaching of please give us the space to ask because it matters that much. We care that much. We want to have space to ask. That's beautiful. And I spent the better part of growing up completely missing that was all that the one was ever asking.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Hey,
So my number, you guys have it. Call me anytime. Like
Yeah.
if anything
Okay.
ever goes down for you guys and you need help with anything, I don't care when it is, you will hear back from me within 24 hours if I don't pick up my phone. And that's a promise.
It's a two-way street, brother. Yeah.
thank you, Alan. Alan
Yeah,
Grubner. Hey, Alan Grubner, everybody.
Oh yeah, wait. So the Buddha used to start every speech by every discourse by saying, "Sons and daughters of the noble ones, remember who. Oh, sons and daughters of the noble ones, remember who you are." So it's like that, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's remember.
Mhm,
Let's
yep.
remember.
Every
Remind
time we
ourselves
sit down to
constantly.
practice, right before I pick up my horn, oh, sons and daughters of the noble ones, and also, oh, mind, please understand, you don't belong to me.
Mm.
Peace, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Alan, please text me what you would like to have in the description of this video in terms of like where people can check you out.
Uh-oh.
Or not. We can
Yeah,
leave it.
no, I will. I'll
We
do
can
the
leave
right
it
thing.
off,
Yeah.
or we can, you know, if you're
Yeah.
if you want people to be interacting with you or checking you out on
Oh
some
yeah.
platforms or whatever, please text me that info. And I'll put it in
Yeah,
the description.
definitely. When's the air date?
Probably 2 weeks.
From today.
Okay, great. So then
I'm-
I have 2 weeks to get my shit together online.
I'm
Perfect.
yeah,
That's
I'm
perfect.
generally
That's exactly what I need.
posting 2 weeks after the episode.
Perfect, man. It's perfect.
So Natalie's episode is
Would be like I'm
today?
gonna try to put that up tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, killer.
Solid.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
Okay.
Well, I got to skedaddle myself.
Yeah.
and
Take
get on my
care.
bike. Take
Rock and
care.
roll.
Be well.